This is probably the craziest psychedelic combination I've ever tried and maybe ever will try. Welcome back to TripTips. For those of you who don't know, nitrous oxide is a gas that does some weird brain stuff and somehow separates you from yourself, also known as dissociation. When you take it by itself, you get a pleasant, relatively mildly drunken psychedelic-ish effect, but when nitrous oxide gas meets psychedelic substances, something happens and they synergize into this very radical experience that rivals a DMT breakthrough. Stay tuned till the end because I'll be sharing some of the most crazy fucking experiences I've ever had, some of which made a DMT breakthrough feel like a microdose. I obviously don't recommend you take any substances, but if you insist on trying this, then make sure to watch the safety guide linked in the card above. If you do go down this rabbit hole, you should expect the intensity of your trip to exponentially multiply by a stupid amount. But you don't need to be anxious about it because 1, it's so quick and intense that there's not much chance to fight it and resist, and 2, dissociatives tend to have a strong anti-anxiety effect. Even though you can have experiences far more intense than a DMT breakthrough, they aren't necessarily as scary because you're kind of detached from what's happening. You definitely can have challenging experiences, but it's very unlikely, and having had a few of them myself, it's worth it. The craziest part is that it only really lasts a couple of minutes. The speed and ease at which you will almost instantly experience ego death is absolutely mind-blowing. And not only that, but there's this whole other dimension to it. See, we're actually combining two different hallucinogens, a psychedelic and a dissociative. The synergy created adds this whole other direction your awareness can expand in, which exponentially multiplies how far it can take you. In my personal experience, it feels like getting shot in the head with the universe, multiverse, omniverse, depends how much you're gonna take. Your ability to be aware of more and more things simultaneously with so much clarity just keeps going up and up and up until you reach the peak, where it's common to essentially feel like you understand everything in every way. Like you've just been shown the secrets to the fundamental nature of reality, and holy shit was it obvious, you will never forget this. Until a few seconds have passed and then you forget it. It definitely can be addictive just because it feels so good and profound, so be careful. Space apart your trips and don't chase the experience too much. I know the nature of reality is so obvious there and you just want to bring that back with you, but it will leave you as fast as it came. Something I found really interesting is when I get back, because the experience was so intense and amazing, it makes my trip, even though I'm on quite a high dose, feel like nothing compared to it, which almost always changes up the vibe. I've noticed that the anti-anxiety effect kind of stays with you, because if you can handle 10 times the intensity of your trip, then why would you be overwhelmed with 10 times less? In fact, on my 5th or so acid trip, I took 200 mics alone in my room and I was going through a kind of challenging experience, so I did nitrous and literally came out feeling amazing. I didn't get any anxiety for the rest of the trip. On that very same trip, I took nitrous and I watched time slow down so much that it stopped. And then I zoomed out of the moment I was in and I saw all time as this kind of film reel, which then got rolled up. I zoomed out again and now there was thousands of these rolled up scrolls, each of which represented a bigger unit of time, like a day or a year or something like that. At this point, I had no idea how I would get back to the time I left from because I was just so far away from any moment in particular. So I thought I would just be stuck outside of time forever, which I felt like I was already. I wasn't a human anymore. It felt like I had died and now I could rewatch my entire life as I wanted. The trippiest part is that I recognized where I was. I had memories of having been there infinite times before in between each of my lifetimes. In another one of my nitrous trips, my entire reality dissolved and I started turning into this sphere. I broke through and my body completely became the shape, and I was surrounded by a bunch of other shapes that were all being carried by these fundamental forces. It felt a bit like salvia, but way more fun. Then I realized I was actually being moved towards this really complex system of shapes that was getting ready to slingshot me. And soon enough, I reached it and I watched it prepare, and then I was literally shot out of this cannon thing so hard and so fast that I broke through again from that reality into this infinitely more complex reality where now everything made sense in every way. It felt like I understood the fundamental nature of all of reality, and I was now not just a sphere, but a hypersphere. And not only that, but I was also infinitely many versions of this hypersphere all happening at the same time. Around me were just higher dimensional layers of myself. Honestly, I could give you loads of these trip reports if you're interested, so maybe that's something I could share with you guys in the future, but either way you'll see some more scattered across my other trips. For example, this one where I had a really crazy experience. If this sounds too intense for you and you want an introduction, then weed and nitrous is also a really crazy combination. It's not nearly as profound, but it's still insanely profound. Now, when you combine all three and throw in another dissociative like ketamine, where do we even start? That is for the future. For now, if you want to see what this combo is capable of, then check out my LSA plus nitrous trip report. Have you guys had this experience before? I'd love to read your stories in the comments, so you should totally share that. And if you're new, then hit that subscribe button for a new psychedelic video every week.